May the 4th is here, and we just might be near the actual end of the sequel trilogy. It's been promised oft before, but what if we told you that Wall Street is ticked off and they're ready to tell Lucasfilm no more? The Mando box office could be part of it. We'll explain why they simply cannot stay with the timeline as it currently is. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to step into one of the biggest scoops that we have ever done here on the channel, talking about the future of Star Wars and the potentiality that, yes, indeedly doodly, Disney has finally had enough and they're ready for a reset. We'll explain how. It's probably not the way that you're thinking, and we will get into this. Before we do, we need to tell everybody you should take this with a dosage of sodium for the day. We're going to be talking about future products that are in development, and therefore, we cannot guarantee that this will happen, as changes may occur behind the scenes. As we said before, though, we have a history of doing these kinds of scoops. The last time we did one this big was with letting you all know that Star Wars Celebration would feature Daisy Ridley being announced in a new Rey movie, and boom, it happened, even if the movie does not. Before we get into the scoop, we need to set the table, and this is not the fellow you might think would be the guy to set the table for you, but, well, he's Shaggy. Ruh-roh, Raggy. No, we love this guy. He's the guy behind Always Believe, a very cool channel with 60,000 subscribers. Folks, we highly recommend you go check them out. They're bloggers for Disneyland. And they've stumbled into one heck of a situation here. We're going to play it. They visited Disneyland and they talked to one of the cast members. The one they talked to plays Ahsoka. Now, if you know anything about how it works when you are a cast member who plays a character at Disney, you, in training, receive a huge number of questions that guests may ask you, and you memorize the kinds of answers you would give. You can deviate to some degree, but you really should stick to the script as best you can. These are highly protected documents. You seldom actually get to see them out in the public, but if you train to be a face character, you train on what you're going to say. The same is true for Ahsoka. And guess what else? Where do those answers come from if you are playing Ahsoka? They do not, we believe, only come from Disney in terms of Disney Imagineering and Disney Parks, but also Lucasfilm. Because Galaxy's Edge, when it comes to all of the canon and the lore, and this is considered canon in Star Wars, well, it's controlled by the Lucasfilm story group. Let's see what Ahsoka had to say to them about why Luke, Leia, Han, Darth, and all the rest are showing up suddenly in a place that was supposed to be set after The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Although it's weird because there's like not really any characters out.
Yeah.
There's no like First Order show.
No. We saw Ahsoka, but that's about it. She's the only one.
Ahsoka had some things to say.
Yeah.
She had some things to say to us.
Yeah.
Did you tell them what she said?
You can say it, because maybe you can say it better than I did.
Well, she didn't technically she told Alice, because Alice is her apprentice. Shattering a rift of some sort.
The world between worlds is shattering.
Worlds, and she knows about that. Yeah. And that they called for backup because somebody named Darth Vader is going to be coming around.
All right. Now, Lauren, we have heard about the world between worlds. I think we've seen it before in Ahsoka, but this is I don't want to say this is canon because a character said it to Disney, but if this is part of the official script, if this is part of the reason now that they're saying that all these characters exist in this place called Batuu that's canon, this is the first time from Lucasfilm that we're getting all of these different timelines coming together via the world between worlds. Is that right?
Sort of, yes, based on that interaction.
Okay. And Lauren, why is Ahsoka in particular so interesting when it comes to the world between worlds?
It's the world between worlds was introduced in Rebels, and this involved Ahsoka surviving an encounter that she should not have survived with Darth Vader. And this came after a duel. She was yanked out in the middle of that duel by Ezra through the portal into the world between worlds and ended up essentially catapulted into the future. She avoided her fate. And we have seen the world between worlds as well in the Ahsoka series. That's where the shattering this actress is referencing comes from. It involves Anakin or a vision of Anakin within the world between worlds, shattering the bridge that she was on, and then she abruptly exited the world between worlds and woke up unconscious in a body of water.
And so it's fair to say that Ahsoka, in the canon of current Star Wars, Ahsoka is not supposed to be alive. She cheated death through however this world between worlds thing works, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Hold on to that, ladies and gentlemen. We needed to set the table for you, okay? I need you to know that things are happening behind the scenes, because at the same time that Disneyland is bringing all these characters, and we assume Florida will do so soon as well, bringing all the original characters back into this world, the reason they're giving is because of the world between worlds. That's why all these characters suddenly exist in Disneyland. All right, take a look at this out of the Hollywood Reporter. This has been covered on the Valiant Renegade channel. We're covering it here right now. Box office, Mandalorian and Grogu now tracking for an $80 million launch. Directed by Jon Favreau, the movie is a big screen continuation of Disney Plus's streaming series, The Mandalorian. Pamela McClintock writing this. Folks, we don't even really need to read much of the article. I just need you to know this is coming out Memorial Day weekend. Now, any movie that comes out as the big blockbuster for Memorial Day weekend, if it makes less than $100 million, that's humiliating, because there are about 4 big weekends in the year when that's like, get ready. Independence Day is one of those. You've got Thanksgiving to a lesser degree. You've got Christmas. Some might say Labor Day a little bit. But Memorial Day weekend is a huge weekend. For Mandalorian Grogu to come out and make $80 million in 4 days, remember what that means is that Star Wars on a 3-day counter, right? The 3-day weekend is tracking for $60 million. We've reached the point where they don't have many choices left. We've reached the point where this is just unsustainable. And so it seems like perhaps under new Disney leadership, the new Disney C-suite, Josh D'Amaro, maybe they've had enough. Let's go to it now from that Park Place. Here we have it. Disney executives reportedly ready to reset Star Wars and splinter the sequel trilogy. Let's get into the rumor. Let's get into the stuff. And then we're going to hand it over to Marv and Lauren to talk about this. Marv, we've got here this focus group that Matt Bellany from Puck put together. Walk us through this, Marv, because this comes from an article that you wrote. This is also recently breaking over the weekend, that kids don't care for Star Wars anymore.
Correct. So essentially what happened was Matt Bellany had a group of teens, ages 17 and 18, in for an interview about, what's going on in Hollywood and summer movies that they're excited for. They talked at length about Spider-Man. They talked at length about the Odyssey. And they had some really terrible hot takes too. So these aren't based kids. He was like, well, what's one celebrity that makes you go out of your way to see a movie? They were like, oh, Zendaya. So these were those kinds of kids. And he said, well, what about Star Wars? And they basically said, we don't really care. It says here, I like the old stuff, but the new stuff, I'm not too excited for The Mandalorian. Never watched it personally. And another one says, anything that came out before I was born isn't that great.
Right. So even the kids who lean in a particular direction, they don't care for the stuff that Disney thought they were going to make them happy with, like The Acolyte, for example. And if you think The Acolyte is actually retrending on Disney Plus, we've got Tropical Land in Antarctica to sell you.
Right.
All right. Here's what we've got, folks. We're going to go down here. It just came out over the weekend as well that Jon Favreau says he will sit down and talk with Dave Filoni next week about the future of the Mandoverse movies and shows, which is amazing because that lines up with what we're hearing behind the scenes. And so when this happened, when we saw this pop out, we said, okay, we've got a lot of stuff landing at the same time. All right, so you all know, I'll put this picture up. I know it's bad casting, but they're bringing the characters back, the OG characters, the OT characters. They're back at Disneyland. You get the idea. All right, so let's go down here to the world between worlds. All right. It says what this means is the rumors we've been hearing that Lucasfilm is about to actually use the world between worlds is already happening, and it's being implemented first at the parks. I mean, it's happening. Before getting into where Star Wars is likely headed, according to a source, we'll just put this quote out there about Disney implementing the OT characters in the parks. It comes from a former Imagineer who wishes to have their identity protected. It says, oh man, I have a strong bias for the OG and a deep adverse opinion for sequels. Even badly cast, it is all a better product now, in my opinion. Star Wars is not as hard as Disney has made it. Good old Bobby has damaged a lot of strong brands in his tenure. I am extremely hopeful that the fans will react in a positive way, and this will begin to set the course for correction. It's going to take time, though. Again, this from a former Imagineer. All right, let's get in the rumor. Here it is, folks. Take this with salt, but there's a lot of stuff lining up here. A lot of stuff, and we're about to get into the nitty-gritty details. According to a source close to Lucasfilm, we now believe that the final season of Ahsoka, which I think, Lauren, we have that confirmed in recent interviews. There won't be a third season of Ahsoka. Is that right?
At least that's what they have said. That's correct.
Okay. According to a source close to Lucasfilm, we now believe that the final season of Ahsoka is Filoni's last chance to get ratings for this era of Star Wars. If it does not get ratings, the plan told to us that there will be a mini project to wrap up the Mandoverse and pivot back to the original Star Wars characters. More importantly, we have been informed that Disney executives have impressed upon Dave Filoni that the sequel trilogy needs to be branched off. The way to do that, we believe, based on conversations, is for Ahsoka to interact with the World Between Worlds in a way that makes the Kathleen Kennedy sequel trilogy exist in its own timeline, separate from the rest of Star Wars. We have been told more details, but are refraining from providing the info in order to not spoil possible future stories. I will also say that we're not sharing more details because we don't want to have a situation where they actually change their plans because it leaked. And so they adjust to that because we are probably not a year, maybe multiple years away from them implementing all this. Although, Lauren, I know later in the show you disagree with that. Is that right?
Well, somewhat. I'm curious how deep you want me to go into what I think is going on here. So
right.
We'll play it by ear.
According to our source, there is a significant desire from Lucasfilm to give Ahsoka a movie ending and to make the change in a way that satisfies original trilogy, prequel trilogy, and sequel trilogy fans. Don't get us. We're just reporting this, okay? I know many of you would say there's no way that'll work. We're just reporting it. An internal fear, allegedly, is that doing a franchise-level reset in a Disney Plus show, novel, or comic would leave audiences confused moving forward.
Yeah.
As for why any of us should believe that Disney is finally ready to make the change, it's basically that they have almost no choice. The Star Wars Hotel, Galactic Star Cruiser, was based on the sequel trilogy. It failed and closed in 1 year. When Galaxy's Edge, the theme park land, was opened at Disneyland, attendance at the park actually decreased. They can't even get a Rey movie into production after trotting Daisy Ridley out on stage. And you all know the joke about the Acolyte. Favreau is meeting with Dave Filoni this week about the future of Star Wars. That's a good sign. It likely means that Disney has managed to keep Favreau past his contract, which we believe ends with The Mandalorian and Grogu. Favreau has been all about referencing George Lucas and the OT in the run-up to Mando. And a poor box office performance for the film is the sort of thing that might actually free his hands even more. After all, if Disney feels Favreau needs the ability to cook without being tethered to a more amateurish Lucasfilm, he might get the chance to do what Kathleen Kennedy never wanted, reset Star Wars. And of course, I don't think this would ever happen under Bob Iger. I don't think it would ever happen under Kathleen Kennedy, but here we are. All right, Lauren, go ahead, Marv, go ahead.
Something's got to give, because it's unsustainable the way it is at the moment. You have this property that is, they need it to be profitable, and it's not. Nothing that they do is making any money, and the fact that this Mando movie is going to bomb is going to be a massive, massive issue for them. It proves that it's not a viable theatrical property anymore. And to say that about Star Wars is still wild. The only times they have to be able to notice, the only times that people actually have gotten excited about things that they have done, the last time there was major fan approval around something was when Luke showed up at the end of Mando 2. And the problem with The Mandalorian is that the further it goes, the more we get closer and closer to the First Order, and nobody wants to get there.
Right. And the other thing, too, is, so if this opens to 80 million, you think it's going to do a 1-to-1 probably. So it's 160 million worldwide global opening. Mm-hmm. And Star Wars films tend to do something like a 2.5, 2.75. Now, there are exceptions. Force Awakens, for example, is an exception. But Solo and Return of Skywalker, or the Rise of Skywalker, I always want to say Rise of Palpatine, both did around that 2.75. So if it comes in at 180 and it does 2.75, this film is not going to come close to breaking even. So, and this is like, what's bigger than The Mandalorian for Lucasfilm or for Disney? So we've run out of options here. They have to do something. Now, Lauren, we have been told, go ahead, Marv.
Well, I was going to say that they have made it a point in the marketing for this to say that this is the least expensive Star Wars movie ever made, because they want to get out in front of the financial loss thing here. But it's a Star Wars movie. If it doesn't make over, $500 million or 750 million, I don't care at that point what the break even point was. That's a failure.
Yes. Okay. So Lauren, people have been waiting. I am not in the position to talk about everything I know or think that I know when it comes to how they're going to do this. You have some very interesting theories, which I think people should listen to. And that's the way I'm going to put this. Lauren, what do you think they could do that would branch the sequel trilogy off? And folks, we're going to get into whether or not it's a good idea and whether it would fix Star Wars. Because I know many of you out there saying, this is crap. This will never fix Star Wars. It's not enough. Hang on. But first, Lauren, how could they do it? And what does it seem like they're leading up to if they've been told finally branch off the sequel trilogy, whatever that might mean? Go ahead.
So I'm going to lay out a few things before I get into the theory, because I think it's important to provide some context, and it will explain why I've been saying some of the things that I've been saying for a while. Disney and Lucasfilm have an impossible task. And part of the reason for that is the one thing that they must do to fix Star Wars is the one thing that it is almost impossible for them to do, which is to disavow, to eject, to eliminate the sequel trilogy. And the reason that it's almost impossible for them to do that is that they have so damaged the brand at this point that the calculation that they have to make is, okay, we know the fans hate it. We know nobody wants it. But if we get rid of it, if we throw it all away, if we come out and we say that it's not canon, and then we try and produce something new, and then the fan base doesn't like that either, they have now pissed off everybody. Mm-hmm. And that truly eliminates the brand. At that point, there's no recovery whatsoever.
And we're really close to no recovery right now. Many people say there's no recovery.
That is exactly why they're in the position they're in now. They have an impossible task. So the closest thing that they can do is try to have their cake and eat it too. They want to preserve the sequel trilogy for those people who do like it, while also eliminating it from actually being a part of the timeline.
Now, hang on a second, Lauren. I want to interrupt you. Not that I enjoy interrupting you, but I want to interrupt for just a minute because I need to put something. You know, people think that we're just trying to fanboy this, or we're trying to talk about Star Wars because we really love Luke and we can't stand what Kathleen Kennedy did. Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. We're running the numbers here, okay? This is a financial thing for Disney. And to understand why they would be willing to do this now, you need to understand what's at stake. If you look at the highest grossing entertainment franchises of all time, adjusted for inflation, this includes merchandise and everything. It's not just movies, it's merchandise, everything. Pokemon is number one at $150 billion. Hello Kitty, pretty far behind at $120. Winnie the Pooh, 108. Mickey Mouse at 106. Star Wars is at 103. I don't know if you all know this, but Mickey Mouse has been around longer than Star Wars. Star Wars is in the 5th spot. And this thing could drop to being completely irrelevant. Now, imagine if Mattel had Barbie and Barbie was about to become unsellable. Okay? Mattel would do anything to stop that from happening because it's existential. I think that Star Wars is almost, we're here now, right? The Mandalorian Grogu is the flashing red light. Disney knows they're about to be completely irrelevant with what is the number 5 biggest franchise on the planet. All right. Go ahead, Lauren.
So they've got a couple of interesting problems here. They need to somehow come up with a reset, but I don't believe they can reboot the trilogy for reasons that the original trilogy, for reasons we've already gone into. One, that would make people even angrier because you're trying to replace classics and there's no evidence that they can do that. You have to somehow come up with something greater than the original. And secondly, I would argue that they already did that with the sequel trilogy. It's part of what got them in trouble in the first place. So they have to find a way to eliminate what ultimately killed the franchise while still keeping it as part of the story for those people who want it. And the way that you do that is with a plot device like the World Between Worlds. Now, this is something that I've said before, and it's important to keep this part in mind. What I'm talking about is not a multiverse. I don't think a multiverse can work in Star Wars. It is a different kind of animal. It is not a comic book. I also don't think that it is, in the strictest sense of the thinking of it, time travel. There was a time travel effect of the World Between Worlds, but I think the World Between Worlds works differently. In a way, this is more kind of like a Doctor Who thing in that it's a timey-wimey thing, and it's also a plot device that you really only get to use once. It's an emergency escape hatch, and you have to use it in a way that also destroys it when it's done. So the one thing that has altered reality in Star Wars in a concrete way was Ezra saving Ahsoka. And I think that means that it reverberated throughout time in the Star Wars universe and space, because that's how the World Between Worlds works. It is a central focus of the Force that touches every time and event throughout history, going forward and going back. That's why all of the portals exist the way that they do in that space. The shattering that they're referring to occurred in Ahsoka Season 1.
And real quick, the shattering that they're referring to, again, which it's so odd for us to be using this as the example, but this is where it came from. Folks will put it on the screen for those of you who are just joining. These bloggers at Disneyland had the Ahsoka character who is trained in what to say to questions. Her response to how all these characters are at Disneyland is that the shattering of the World Between Worlds has brought these characters together, which is the first time that Lucasfilm is using that in canon. Batuu is considered canon. So, Lauren, they're doing it. It's just how are they going to do it with Disney Plus? Lauren, as you continue to explain this, walk us through how do they get rid of the sequel trilogy using the World Between Worlds, and why do we think that they might actually do that this time?
What they have to do is put reality back the way that it was supposed to be, which means they have to prevent Ezra from saving Ahsoka in the first place. And what that does is restore what would be the original timeline that should have occurred, and it allows you to pick up from the end of Return of the Jedi fresh, while not technically eliminating what happened before. It's like looping time around in kind of a circle and then continuing back from an earlier point, if you follow what I'm saying.
If I understand, go ahead, Marv.
I think that they don't even have to do all of this. I think Ezra pulling her through has already done this, and you could easily say that it's done this. Because without Ahsoka, in Mando Season 2, the Empire gets the baby, and they use the baby to clone Palpatine.
That's what they did.
But they didn't finish the testing they had to do on Grogu.
No, it's not the testing they had to do on Grogu. It's that they had used his blood initially to conduct several cloning tests, but none of them were successful. All of the test subjects died. That's why they ultimately had to fuse cloning, strandcast technology, dark science, and secrets only the Sith knew. And the best that they could get was Snoke. And then, essentially through the use of the harness that they hung Palpatine on, that kept his version of a clone alive. That was the dark science part.
Let me simplify this for people like me who are not huge Star Wars fans to the degree that you are, Lauren, okay? Let me simplify this. And for those who are interested in the financials of it all, what you're suggesting, and I may not be able to, is that what they could do is have Ahsoka go to the World Between Worlds and fix it, maybe in a way that ends her. So you got this big moment, but that would reset Star Wars after the George Lucas trilogy. But it wouldn't mean that the sequel trilogy never happened. It just means that it's in its own branched off timeline, sort of like the extended universe, and people can still enjoy it if they want to. It happened in this alternate kind of thing, but we can go forward without it. Where am I wrong there?
I mean, sort of. It's not that it still exists. It is eliminated, but it did exist, if you follow me. And I see people asking, would normies be able to follow this? I think it's largely irrelevant. Part of the reason that I think this is the direction that they're going is because Favreau said that his Season 4 scripts largely got ported into Ahsoka Season 2. We know that Ahsoka Season 2 is the final season of Ahsoka. We also know that it involves Baylan Skoll looking for another entrance into the world between worlds that involves the gods of Mortis. This all ties into that. So the shattering that's been referenced, I think, is something that does not occur all at once. I think that the world between worlds is breaking down. They have very little time to capitalize on it. I suspect that's what Season 2 is going to be about, is leveraging that to enable them to pull the Band-Aid or pull the pin on the grenade if that's what they've decided they need to do. I do think that for the last year, they have been trying to decide, what are we going to do? They have been trying to collect data. They have been running several different tests, I believe, to gauge impact and audience reception of certain things they've been doing. And my belief is that they have now made a decision. I don't think that they are getting public about that yet, but it's obvious that the marketing has shifted. It's obvious that the original trilogy characters are the only thing that is generating interest. They have to find a way to get back to that. There's only one way they can do it.
This is a money problem. You can't make movies. You can't make Star Wars movies for this amount. This just, you can't do it. This is a 60 million 3-day, 80 million 4-day. You can't do it. And they're out of options. There is literally no way to continue doing the sequel trilogy and even the Mandoverse. The Mandoverse is done. People just want the original characters, and you desecrated the original characters. Marv, is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think that people always had an idea of where Star Wars was going to go, and it usually involved our heroes continuing to be heroes. I think it would be very ironic with how the sequel trilogy fans have, decried the original, what is now called the Legends timeline that spun into its own timeline now. If the sequel trilogy gets spun into its own named timeline now, that would be very ironic.
You could call it Legends.
Let me bring in two of our guests, and then we've got another one that I think is going to surprise a lot of people that I'm excited to bring on. But let's bring on two guests real quick to weigh in on this. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, he is he's not a rising star. He is a star who has taken over the YouTubes. He is Real Life Fake Wizard. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Well, hello.
Excited to be here. I heard Lauren talking all about the world between worlds. I had to jump on and say I can't wait for the reset of Star Wars. What a time to be alive.
All right. And what a time to be alive. And please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, someone who understands the merchandising side better than just about anybody else there. Why? Because he makes merchandise. He's Andy Masterson. Welcome, Andy.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, Wizard, I go to you first. This idea of the world between worlds has been bandied about by a lot of YouTubers and influencers and all that kind of stuff. I see this as the ripcord. I don't think that they're going to spend a long time to explain how it works. I think that Disney C-suite has basically said to Lucasfilm, pull the ripcord, the sequel trilogy, like we can't destroy it. It's got to exist in its own thing. Filoni, you figure it out. We have to get rid of it. It's killing us.
It's not going to be enough. You are not going to get the normie middle fans back. They're done. Star Wars is too complicated. It's boring to them now. They won't even go and check out the theme parks as much. You got Han, Luke, and Leia back in the parks. Who are the people that are going to see Han, Luke, and Leia? The super Disney fans and the final remaining diehard Star Wars fans that realistically we're already going. Okay.
Well, the sequel fans have been griping about it since it happened.
All 12 of them. Wiz, here's the thing. The original characters showed up and the park hit capacity. The event hit capacity. And whether or not, I know what you say. I know you say that can't be sustained.
Yes.
Here's the deal. For Disney and for their executives, what do they see? They see, we use these characters, we make lots of money. And remember that Disney right now, I believe, is largely being run by Wall Street execs, by James P. Gorman and Hugh Johnston. That's who's running this company. Josh D'Amaro's a brand new CEO. Dana Walden is kind of like, we had to have her because we can't get rid of her. She's number 2. But I think this is being run by Wall Street. They don't care about Bob Iger. They don't care about Kathleen Kennedy. They want to make money. And the only way to make money is pull the ripcord.
But if that comes down to the Ahsoka has to be removed for that to happen. I don't know. That is the most desperate thing imaginable. Ahsoka should have died 10 years ago to this day, pretty much to this day, is the finale of Rebels Season 2. It was 2016. Okay, she should not have lived after that. The invention and the projection of the world between worlds, I think it was the year after, was basically there just to make sure Ahsoka lived.
I think that even if Ahsoka does die, like if Ahsoka is the sacrificial martyr that resets the Star Wars universe, which I could see Filoni loving because it makes her extremely important, I think that there will be 3 new gods of Mortis. I think Anakin will be the father, Ahsoka will be the daughter, and there will be a third one who everyone said should have been, if they had ever put Starkiller into the continuity. So,
Lauren, Ahsoka dying. Does it happen in the way that you envision this?
Yes, it would necessarily have to happen, but it would happen in the sense that she died where she was originally supposed to. I agree with Fake Wizard. She was supposed to die there. It is the fact that she did not that creates this aberrant timeline that gave us all of this crap.
Andy, I want to go to you. You are a man who makes merch. You know about the toy lines. You know what's going on. When we show that Star Wars is the 5th highest grossing franchise out there, and we have reached total irrelevancy. There's nothing that Disney can pull out of their hat like The Mandalorian. That was the #1 Disney Plus show. It made Disney Plus have a chance, and they destroyed that. But now it's going to make $60 million over the 3-day is the projection. Andy, do you think that this comes down to that the big box retailers are going to kick it out of the slots? They're going to kick it out of the aisles because it just doesn't have any kind of strength anymore, and so Disney is being forced to make a change.
This would give them a chance to make it happen. You would have to do a lot to regain fan trust and fan confidence. It's tricky to kill off Ahsoka because she was the one factor that George Lucas said had accomplished something that they never were able to crack, of getting a female audience into, like a young female audience into Star Wars. And Dave Filoni that's his baby. He absolutely loves that character. And would he try and move heaven and earth to find some other way to make that happen so that somebody else that makes the sacrifice and he still gets to keep Ahsoka tied in? Now, of course, that would create a whole bunch of new continuity errors. Or is it going to be something where they would make a new sequel trilogy, and now you've got to tie in all this Thrawn stuff and things like that, making a half-ass version of the Thrawn trilogy with Luke and everything like that.
Yeah, let me ask about the Thrawn thing real quick, Andy. Lauren, what if season 2 is it that Thrawn discovers the world between worlds, so we race to there? Is that what the whole thing is?
I'm not real sure about that, and I wouldn't necessarily think so, because he was on the world where that was at, Peridia, this entire time. He's now back in the mainline Star Wars galaxy. Baylan Skoll is doing his own thing, so I guess it depends on whether they reconnect in some way. I see that as being less important, though.
Okay, and Ahsoka is trapped on the planet where she goes to where the world between worlds is, right? So it's pretty much set up. I mean, that we're doing this in the next season. Even if nobody watches it, that might, ladies and gentlemen, we're not here to tell you they're going to do this well. Nobody may even see how this happens, but pull the ripcord is going to happen.
Oh, nobody's going to watch Ahsoka season 2. Nobody is.
But it was supposed to be a setup for Abeloth. Like, that's where this was supposed to be going. And
yeah,
Abeloth
you're right.
is another Legends character. So if they abandon ship on that, I don't know what the heck they're doing. This sounds like it's going to be terrible now.
Oh, if the Mando movie makes $60 million
now, what now? This sounds like it's going to be terrible now.
I wanted to see a bad Abeloth adaptation, Lauren. Spare me.
Where's my $20 million opening weekend Abeloth movie? I want to get this super chat up before we bring in our 6th panelist. And folks, you're going to be very excited about who we've got to join us. Just Jay is out there for 20. And I want to read this. And folks, we'll get all of them, but this one I want to have for a conversation right now. They are worried about holding on to the sequel trilogy audience. The audience has already proven that it is insufficient to maintain the IP. What little of them are human and not PR tools, someone can't let go. It's a trap. Now, remember, Disney is being run by Wall Street people right now. That's my belief. That's my theory, and I think you'll find out that's true. Wall Street people don't care about if there are sequel trilogy fans. They don't care about the story. Wall Street cares about how many bad articles are going to be written about us. So we can't completely junk the sequel trilogy because we're going to get nailed in the trades. We're going to get nailed, on all these websites and blah, blah, blah. So how do we do this in a way that kind of keeps it?
It's also doing the calculation that if they do this and they still screw up with what they do afterwards, half of nothing or half of not much is still better than all of nothing.
I think there's one thing they can do to get people interested. They can bring on George in some kind of advisory role. And I think if they pay George an exorbitant amount of money to advise on this, people will be like, George Lucas is back at Star Wars, and people will sit up and take note. Then the first thing will come out, and people will be like, oh, this wasn't a good idea. But, I think they will use George's name again.
Fund his museum, do something like that. He's got so much money. I mean, I don't know what amount you could pay him, but do something for his estate, for his kids, for his museum. Make him a guarantee down the road for a movie, that you'll make something that he always wanted but never could get done. Folks, let's bring on our sixth panelist. I think you're going to love seeing for the very first time, I believe, on the Pro Show. Get ready. Here we go.
Who could that be? Let's go see, boys and girls.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome for the very first time, Gary Ambrosia is here. Gary, welcome aboard, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Gary, your thoughts on the idea that Disney would finally be willing to pull the ripcord and force Filoni to say, yeah, we're done. We're going back to the original trilogy characters. We don't care how you get there. Do your lore magic, whatever it is you got to do, but we got to go back to Luke, Leia, Han, because we're losing in every possible way. Was it always inevitable, Gary?
That's my reaction. No, I just saw the original characters are coming back to the theme park, right? We're supposed to get all excited about Han and Luke and R2-D2 showing up, and then I see Darth Vader emerging from a sequel trilogy TIE fighter,
right?
And I'm like, it's a little thing, but you guys are already screwing it up.
They retconned that, don't you?
Yeah, they tried to retcon it.
I don't know. I can't keep up with this stuff. But I guess I don't know,
Gary. That's what the executives are saying. We don't care. Just get Darth Vader out there somewhere, man. We're
right? Yeah. Well, but there's a way to do it right, and that was the whole mistake in the first place. Do it right. Do it well. That's not doing it well.
Maybe that pretends how this will go. Because people are going to say, "Well, nobody's going to understand how this works," and blah blah blah. And I think everybody's right. I think at the end of this, nobody's going to know how to happen. We're just going to know, okay, we went back to Luke, Leia, and Han. The end. Move on. You want to understand it? There's going to be some obscure novel that comes out in 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
You read page 53012. You'll find it back there.
You want to be able to understand it. This is the company that brought us. How did you get this lightsaber? A good story for another time, where somehow Palpatine returned. Like, I don't care how they do it, as long as they do it. I don't care how it happens, as long as I never see Rey or Kylo Ren or any of them ever again. I don't care how you do it.
I know how you could get Lucas involved with this. You just promise to make a character that pretends to be Luke's best friend and stabs him in the back. A female character with a British accent.
Exactly. But I don't care if the Disney fairy godmother shows up and bibbity bobbity boos the sequel trilogy out of existence. As long as it ends with what I need, I'm good with it.
Well, let me ask
what happens. I hope it's the dude with the beard.
Oh, please, yeah, definitely.
Lauren, if they do the World Between Worlds and they get rid of the sequel trilogy's off on its own thing, they could still do their little Kylo Ren movie down the road for a Disney Plus exclusive and just be like, it happened in that timeline, right? They could still do that if they wanted.
No,
let me be clear here. I still don't think this is going to fix their woes. I think the only way that they can fix it is to literally disavow the sequel trilogy and say it never happened. I would not advise them to do that little Kylo Ren movie, and in fact, Steven Soderbergh himself has said it's dead. So I would just say, no matter what you do, cut ties with the sequel trilogy, never, ever mention the events of those movies ever again. Let time quietly erase them. paper it over, just like you've done most of your old EU stuff. They're constantly overwriting canon as they go. Just let that happen through the natural process of time. You've got 30 years to work with.
But they have to pull the ripcord because they have to start doing heroic Luke Skywalker after Return of the Jedi, or else nobody is going to watch.
Correct, they do have to do it, but I would say that once you've done it, just shut up. Don't say anything more. Just stop, because the more that you try to attach to it, the worse it's going to get.